free mind. You crazy for this. Soulful. It's like our responsibility to make us feel something. You know, to make people feel. Make people feel what we feeling. Hey, yo.
Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today, a show that we do on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. And I actually have some new comics sitting on the table in front of me that I don't think that I've shown you guys in a video before. And if I have, you have my apologies. I know at least a couple have shown up recently, so I know that those haven't been in a video, but I'm going to show you guys what it is that managed to pick up that has shown up here at the house. We're also going to spend this live stream going through some questions that have been submitted into me on Instagram, because I had some things that I had to do before the show and I didn't have time to do as much prep as I normally do before a show. So I decided to make this one just a Q&A session. So I'm going to respond to some questions that have been submitted into me on Instagram, but I'm also going to be responding to questions that you guys are going to be putting in the live chat. So if you're in the live stream right now, I look forward to hearing what your questions are, and I will do my best to answer them in a robust fashion. As a reminder, this show is going to be rebroadcast on the podcast, and you might wonder which podcasting platforms. All of them. If you search for Reggie Collects on your preferred podcasting platform, you will probably find me there, and there is a chance that you could find as many as 150 episodes of my show. So yes, you can take Reggie on the go if you happen to be out walking or hiking or exercising or driving in the car, because I know that there are some truck drivers out there, and there's also some people that just have some long commutes. So I encourage you to access the podcast. Shout out to my brother Rizal for making magic happen with the podcast. I also want to give a huge shout out to my cousin Brandon Isaac. A lot of people have commented on the intro and the outro music that is associated with the live streams and pre-recorded videos. That music is from my cousin Brandon Isaac. He has his stuff out there on various streaming platforms. So you definitely want to click on the link in the description of this video to be able to check out some additional songs from him. And I was driving down the street listening to some of his stuff just the other day. Super talented young guy. And if you like hip hop, if you like you old school hip hop, it has that vibe, even though I think he's only like 20 some odd years old. It feels like old hip hop. So shout out to my family for being way more creative than me. So with that said, I'm going to go to the chat real quick, and I want to see who is all up in here. And again, you guys have my apology because I was playing around with the time, had something personal to do. I thought that I was not going to get it done in time, but I actually finished up early. So I decided to jump on here and do the live stream at the normal time. But I see reflected in the numbers that people probably were planning for the later time, but we are going to persevere nevertheless. And we're also going to talk about Sandman. I forgot about that. We're going to talk a little bit about Sandman a little bit later in the show. So again, bear with me as I get my bearings and get myself back on track. There was a robust chat that was happening up in here. I have no questions after 37 years of this. I'm good, says Rush. Yeah, and Rush, I appreciate you not asking me any personal questions, because people sometimes do default to that. So there you go. I'm glad that you're good, my friend. Just met a gentleman that has been married for 55 years. 55 years as of last week. And I'm like, man, that's a long time, longer than I've been alive. Very impressive. And I think he too is good. I think his comment was, this is all old hat to me, was the comment that he made about marriage, but he seemed happy, and as did his wife, because I met her as well. Herman's up in the house. How you doing, brother? It is good to see you. Doug is in here. Randy Resnake is up in here. Squirrel Madness is in the house. It's good to see you, brother. Comic Noob, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you. Oh, my sweet Christmas. This guy right here, Comics with Bueller, he says, I'm so close to the game. Oh, my goodness. Squirrel Madness says he actually watched the first episode of Sandman. How did you enjoy it? Or did you not? Or Did you not? Is the question. I'm scrolling through the comments here. Chasing Grills, I am hopefully going to answer your question here in a little bit as well. Hopefully somebody will remind me of, of that question so that I can actually respond to it. Let me do this real quick. Let me show you guys some of the books that I picked up. And in a second, I want to go to the chat. If you happen to make it to your LCS and you picked up some good books, and you want to shout out what you picked up and your LCS, I definitely want to encourage you guys to go ahead and do that. And if you read something that was really good that we should put on the top of our reading stacks, I want to know that as well, because this is a celebration of New Comic Book Day. And I like people to know what's out there and what's good to combat that narrative that there is nothing good coming out right now. In my opinion, that is a false narrative. It is a false narrative. There's a lot of really great stuff out there if you choose to be receptive to it. And some people are not. Some people are, they just don't know what to read. And those are the folks that we are going to try to help. Blood Syndicate issue number 2. Blood Syndicate issue number 2 right there. I went ahead and picked that one up, and this all came from my comic shop. Here is Moon Knight issue number 14. Never been a big Moon Knight fan, but I am enjoying reading this story arc. It is actually pretty good. I Hate This Place. That is issue, what is this? Issue number 2, I think. Yeah. I Hate This Place issue number 2 right there. Here is Blood Syndicate issue number 3. I don't think that I've shown this one before. I think that 2 may have slipped into another video. Miles Morales issue number 40 action right there. We have some Moon Knight issue number 13. And the very last book that I have here is Punisher issue number 4. And again, I've been talking a lot about Punisher lately. I absolutely enjoy this story arc. I had a guy that made some comments about Punisher the other day. And my question was, have you read it? A lot of people make comments. A lot of people pass judgments about what they perceive things to be. But the question is, have you read it? Have you actually taken the time to investigate? Because if you had, with Punisher, for example, you realize that it's actually a pretty good pretty good comic to read. I'm reading Doug's comment here. I'm gonna let that one go. Philtastic says, I read the most recent issue of Ice Cream Man. I typically don't read this book, and I've heard this issue is not how the story typically is. That being said, it was terrific. Gave me some feels, Philtastic says. We don't need a grown man crying, Phil. So if that's what it does, I don't think we should read this book. If it's going to make people cry, brother, I think we're going to pass on. Jason says the Frank Miller ash can is great, but good luck finding it after today. I do believe that ash can was going for $1 if it was not being given away for free. I think Mark reached out to me. I think he picked it up from his LCS up in Canada for free. But that's just maybe how the Canadians are. I don't know. I'm not clear on that. If anybody else picked up the Frank Miller, let me know if you had to pay that $1 for it or whether somebody was trying to charge a little bit more. There you go, right below it. I picked up that as well. Frank Miller Publishing. Is Frank Miller the one that has basically made the statement that he's trying to make all of his comics more affordable? I want to say that was him. That I want to say I saw something that he was like, I keep hearing people saying that things are super expensive, so I'm trying to make it inexpensive, which I absolutely applaud Frank for doing that. So scrolling through some of the comments here, gotta love the Miles Morales run. No, if you listen to some people, the Miles Morales as a character is trash. If you listen to some people, love Silver Coin, Bloodstained Teeth, and Firepower that came out today. Very solid reads, as well as Nottingham, says Steve White. That's what's up. Thank you, brother, for that. What is it? Ice Cream Man Wright says Punisher is so good. Not if you listen to some people. If you listen to some people, it's trash until you read it, and then you realize it's actually pretty good. Scrolling down through some of the comments here. Mark, Overwatch, Dark Spaces, Wildfire, which just was optioned after one issue. My guess is that they whoever picked it up probably had a pre-read of this thing. They probably saw it long before it came out. Strange, Savage Avengers, what is it? Nightmare Blog? I've never heard of that one before. A couple of things here. Above, Snakes, Miss Marvel, Moon Knight, 21 books in all up in Canada. That's what's up. Scrolling through Rush. What is that? Star Wars 26 out today. 8 first appearances in it. He picked up 3. That's what's up. Scrolling through, Dave says he picked up Frank Miller, the Ronin ash can, and quite a few others. Grabbed 2 ash cans for $1. There you go. Thank you for that. Scrolling through some of the, we don't pass judgment here on what people do. We don't pass judgment, okay? While my LCS had it on the variant shelf, I didn't mind. I like supporting my store, says Jason. There you go. Scrolling through some of my comments here. Juggy Fresh, he'd be hitting the LCS tomorrow. Scrolling through some of the comments, there are some Matt Woods comments that I am skipping over. I'm in Ohio, Reggie. Yeah, you're more than a few hours away, sir. You're more than a few hours away, and the gate is very tall. That's all that I can say to you, Travis. The gate is very tall. The dog's teeth are very sharp. I go on, but I won't. Be safe out there, Travis. Wherever you're going, brother, be safe. The Ashcan Miller was jacked up to 25 of my LCS, says Milt. Wow, that's how they do it in Pittsburgh. That's how they do it in Pittsburgh. Punisher was good, predictable, but fun. I don't know. I haven't read issue 4 or 5, so I can't speak to predictability, but I will tell you, I was surprised. Issue 1, completely surprised. Completely surprised with issue 1. Some of the background stuff that they've started to do with the Punisher has also been a little bit of a surprise. People don't like the retconning. I don't mind it so much because, again, I'm more interested in Frank and Frank as a character, and I think that's, for me, one of the cool things about when a good writer takes over a legacy character is that they tend to provide a little more depth to that character that speaks to me. And I could say that about Eddie Brock, for example. And I have said that about Eddie Brock. I was not interested in Venom before. I was not interested in Venom at all. But Donny Cates's version of him, where he became a father and some other stuff, I was interested in that character. Incredible Hulk is another character, right? That they did some work on last year before last, recently, and I'm a little more interested in the Immortal Hulk. So scrolling down through some of the comments here, messed up people charging on the ash can. Even a $1 book gets hijacked, says Matt Snow. No doubt about it, brother. No doubt about it. Doug's trying to get a free meal here, Bueller. He's trying to get a free meal. Do not do it, brother. Oh, he said he'll treat you after you pay. He'll treat you. Scrolling down through the comments, Milt says he picked up a bunch of books but hasn't had a chance to read anything. Buying Forge first appearance all week, says Brandon. That's what's up. Scrolling through the comments here, Nightmare Blog is tied to, check that out. Nightmare Blog is tied to Philadelphia. Okay. Is it written by the same writer? Is it by the same writer? Scrolling through some of the comments, a lot of people picking up some good stuff. David says all about supplies, bags, and boards. That's what's up. There is a discount code in the description of this video to save you 10% on supplies. There you go. Pittsburgh, the most underrated city in the country. Great place, says Matt Woods. That's what's up. Scrolling through, let's not get that party started. Scrolling through the comments here, I think I'm all caught up for the most part. All right, let me rip through a couple of questions that have found their way to me. Hopefully I can do this before my battery dies. I just noticed that it was low. There was a question here from someone, and I'm not going to reveal who sent the questions in. What comic or arc is the most meaningful to you? What is your favorite story of all time? So I always struggle with this question because I consider myself a Silver Age guy, right? And if you think about it, most Silver Age comics aren't written in arcs. They're like single issues, right? So that's part of my struggle, is always identifying a favorite arc, because there really isn't a favorite arc in my sweet spot of Silver Age comics, right? But if I had to pick a book, for example, and this is a book that I always cite, it would be ASM 33. Gorgeous cover in my mind, but more importantly, it is the story that is contained in the comic. It is a story of morality. It is a story of sacrifice for family. It is a story of men doing what men have to do in order to to provide, right? And I absolutely love that story. ASM 33 is just one of my favorite comics. I need to get a graded copy of it. I don't have the best copy, and I probably should prioritize that and get a really nice copy of it because it is a book that I cite pretty often. I will tell you that one of my favorite story arcs is a Spider-Man story, and it's a more modern comic. It is Superior Spider-Man. Superior Spider-Man is a fantastic read featuring Doc Ock and Spider-Man. Thoroughly enjoyed that story arc. And I will tell you, there's a DC story arc that I was reminded of recently when I was preparing to film a video that you guys will probably see in a week or two, Dark Side War. This was, I think, one of the first DC stories that I read that I absolutely loved. The Dark Side War, all of it, I thought was incredible. I thought that was incredible. Three Jokers was another story, DC, that readily comes to mind. So hopefully that kind of answers the question. So David is saying Jason Aaron's been doing some good work at Marvel, specifically with Punisher. I do not disagree with that. Herman is getting on board with Superior Spider-Man. Again, it's a great story arc, man. I love Spider-Man. I do. And even though this isn't really focused on Spider-Man, it's still a Spider-Man story. And so Superior Spider-Man was just really, really fantastic. So worst Spider-Man story one more day. No doubt about it. Ooh, you know what? Infinity Gauntlet is also fantastic. Infinity Gauntlet, sign me up for some of that. That had a just an amazing impression upon me as a youth. It captivated my attention, and I still have a graded Infinity Gauntlet issue #1. Came back in an 8.5, had a rip on the back. Did not care. It's a book from my childhood. Absolutely love it. And you can't go wrong with Claremont. You can't. I mean, it's impossible. It is impossible to go wrong with him. Scrolling through, what is that? Chasing Grail says, my favorite cover of all time is Batman Year One, Part One. That's what's up. Superior Spider-Man was such a deep dive into the characters of Peter Parker. It was. But again, that goes to the point that I was just making a second ago about the investment in developing a fully fleshed out character. And you're not just a bad guy. There's depth to Otto, right? I mean, he was hooking up with his aunt. That's a whole nother story. But there is a depth to Otto. There is an appreciation for what truly motivates him besides he's evil, he's bad, he does bad things, right? There's a depth there that I fully appreciate where we got inside of Otto's head, and it was freaky, right? If you have not read Superior Spider-Man, I encourage you. I really do encourage you to read that. Scrolling through some of the comments, where do I would just leave that one up there for a hot second. If you are listening to this on the podcast right now, you are missing out on some hilarity that is happening in the comments section. I encourage you, I invite you to come out to a live stream so that you could participate in all the magic that is a live stream. All right, another question that someone sent in is, what is your opinion on studios re-releasing comics similar to The Walking Dead Deluxe? As a publisher, I will tell you that producing a comic is incredibly expensive. It is incredibly expensive. And so I get it. I get it. And I may actually do something similar at some point. If we have enough success with Isolation, we will probably release Isolation as a graphic novel. We may eventually release it as a graphic novel or an individual issue with color. I don't know what the future holds, but when you have success with a piece of IP, you want to try to maximize that opportunity. And the reality is that I'm assuming not everyone can afford Walking Dead #1, but most people can get on board with Walking Dead Deluxe #1 in color, right? They can get on board with that and they can enjoy it and they can read the story from issue #1 all the way through. So shout out to Skybound immediately, who sends me copies of Walking Dead that I then provide back out to the community. But I am not opposed to a publisher doing something like that. I am not opposed to it at all, because I want to say, again, it's not the exact same book that they're re-releasing. There is a little bit of extra that has been added to it, so I can get on board with that. Jay, I cannot read this comment, brother. I cannot read this comment because you need to spell that with one G. It is Regie, just a single G. Top 3 movies of all time. Man, I don't know that I know that. That's a hard one. That's a hard one for me. More than likely, if I had to put some, if I had to generalize it, I would say it's probably mostly horror movies and then maybe some sci-fi mixed into it. If I had to add to it, like, I can tell you right now, I can sit down and watch early Aliens from beginning to end. I love Aliens. I love classic Predator. I love anything with vampires, like 30 Days of Dark, or was that 30 Days of Night? I think it was one of those. Like, if it's a horror movie that involves vampires or zombies, I'm on board with it. But I don't necessarily think in terms of favorite movies of all times. I don't have a memory like that to be able to catalog stuff like that. So this is a rip and response, brother. Rip and response. You can't go wrong with Godfathers. Ooh, you cannot go wrong with Godfather. Goodfellas is not bad at all. I can get on board with that. Dust to Dawn was an excellent movie. I thoroughly enjoyed that. 30 Days of Night. There you go. Good one right there. Hey, how you doing, Sam? What's your opinion on video game comics? I don't know that I understand the comics based upon video games. Generally speaking, Silver Age is my jam. What I would say is this would not be my jam, but that does not make it wrong. If you enjoy it, get after it. It's not my thing. I don't really play video games anymore, and then I also don't really collect comics that are based upon video games. I do have a Mortal Kombat. I used to play Mortal Kombat back in high school, but not really my jam. Not really my jam. Uh, yeah, there's a couple of them that weren't so good, but I still watch them. I would be honest with you, I would still watch them, brother. All right, let me do this real quick, because I have a bunch of questions that were submitted in via Instagram, so I want to acknowledge those. If you have questions and you throw them up in all caps when I'm paying attention, I will absolutely attempt to answer that question. So somebody asked a question: do you have an announcement or secret you want to share with the class? No, I don't have any secrets. I need to make this window bigger. I don't know why my window was so small. I'm trying to see everything, and I don't know. I have absolutely no secrets that I want to share with anybody. But I will throw up a page from Isolation issue 2 right here, and this is more of Delia's work. It is again incredible. As we've constantly mentioned, the creative team behind Isolation, from the writer to the artist assistant to the artist to the letterer, all incredibly talented individuals. All of the pages that you see in Isolation are all hand painted. A tremendous amount of detail, a tremendous amount of work goes into each one of these, and we are aggressively working on issue number 2, trying to get this book out to you guys by the end of the year. I will give you more specific detail later on timing. But again, if you're interested in supporting, we have a Kickstarter going on. There is a link in the description. Shout out to the creative team behind Isolation for making magic happen and putting out some really good stuff for people. I think the receptivity to issue 1 has been overwhelmingly positive. Jim Mint spoke a little bit about issue 1 earlier today on his video that he released, and we are very appreciative for that friendship. Jay, thank you, brother. Here's the thing. I'm going to start correcting more people on the spelling of my name if this is the result. No, seriously, Jay, thank you very much. I kid about the name. It happens either autocorrect or whatever. I'm the one that spells my name weirdly. But I want to thank you for the super chat. I always joke and tell my father that he spells his name incorrectly. He does not enjoy that. Reggie, what's your favorite item from your comic book room? Maybe my microphone. Maybe my microphone. It's a good microphone. It makes me sound really good. I actually don't sound like this in person, so I would have to say my microphone. No, I mean honestly, the microphone is an incredible microphone. Maybe the computer, and I say that because the computer and the microphone is where all this started, where this whole channel started for me, right? Being able to record content and put content out there from my kitchen a few years ago has snowballed into a guide to smart comic collecting, 18,000 people that tune in to check out the content that is released, all because of a microphone and a computer. And so I have to be thankful for that, because here's the other part of it. There's a lot of really awesome books that are on the wall behind me. I didn't have those books. I didn't have those books back in 2017 when I came back into this hobby, but I have those books honestly because of this computer and this microphone. It has allowed me to make the hobby work for me to a point where I can do stuff like that. And I am very thankful. Shout out to Jay that dropped the super chat. Shout out to all of the blue wrenches that support the channel. Shout out to the Patreon members that put me in a position to be able to make magic happen on a regular and ongoing basis. I can tell you for a fact that YouTube doesn't give content creators a ton of money, especially if you don't have a massive channel, right? But it's because of all the other things that surround the channel that I've been able to do a lot of the stuff that I've been able to do. What's everyone's favorite cheese? I am a fan of the Gouda. I am a fan of the Gouda. You cannot go wrong with a little smoked Gouda. Who is your favorite comic book artist? I would have to say it's Jim Lee, hands down. I think Jim Lee, and part of that is because of the impression that he made on me as a young person reading comics, right? Like, I don't follow artists the way that a lot of people do, but I've always liked and appreciated Jim Lee's artwork. You know, there's a lot of artists that I don't necessarily care for their artwork, but Jim Lee is one that has really stuck with me. I would also have to say the artist that took over Spider-Man. Oh, his name is escaping me at the moment. Not the original artist, but the second artist. Somebody in the comment section help me out. He is indeed. He is indeed. He is indeed. No doubt about it. Again, I'm a little late to the live, but I wanted to thank you personally for helping me to press comic books. You are definitely welcome, brother. You are definitely welcome. I'll put out this content, man, with the hope that it will actually help somebody, and fingers crossed when that actually does happen. I had somebody come up to me at a con and was like, I've pressed probably 500 books as a result of the content that you've put out. So I'm very, very appreciative for that. Will another market explosion like COVID times happen in the coming years? This question is not intended to be a political question, but I will say that things related to COVID and pandemics are political in nature, for right or wrong. And I would say I think that it would be really tough for another pandemic to happen anytime in the near future that will result in what happened over the last couple of years. I don't want to get too political, but we will set that aside, right? Is there something else outside of that in terms of the explosive growth that we saw with values? I think that that's essentially the nature of the question. And if I had a crystal ball, I would be able to answer that question. I honestly don't know. The reality is that no one can predict booms or busts. You can only see a bust, for example, or a crash in hindsight. No one can predict this stuff, right? What I will say to you is that I firmly believe in the long-term potential of comics as a form of entertainment, and also, for some, as a form of investment. Not all books as a form of investment, but certainly some books as a form of investment. Absolutely believe in the long-term potential of the genre, of this hobby, and fingers crossed will be around to see this hobby continue to grow and thrive for a long time to come. I think that that's the nature of the question. So looking here, what are some of your favorite non-comic related YouTube channels? This is a good question because as you all know, I don't watch a lot of other YouTubers that are in this genre for a reason. And part of the reason for that is that if we all watch each other, we all end up sounding the same and we become a homogenous group. And I don't want to do that. I want to have my own voice. I want Bueller to have his own voice, Tom to have his own voice, Jim Mint, Nerdy Girl, everybody. I want them all to have their own unique voices. Swagger House. I want everybody to be able to speak with their own voice. 3 Men in a Basement is very different from Reggie Collects. And I think that that's a good thing. So great question that someone asked about the challenge is a lot of the stuff I watch I can't necessarily tell you guys, but I will attempt to share some of it. Crank Lucas. I like hip hop and I like comedy, and this guy Crank Lucas does a mixture of hip hop comedy, and I absolutely love it. It's like skits and stuff like that. Absolutely love some Crank Lucas. Again, I love hip hop. I love music, but I specifically love hip hop for certain activities, right? Like driving. DJ Vlad. I like Vlad TV. I like the interviews with hip hop artists and people that surround the culture of hip hop. I enjoy his interviews. I would say Joe Rogan is another person that I watch and I enjoy. I watch a lot of his YouTube stuff. I don't get a chance to listen to the podcast, but I do watch the stuff on YouTube. And Kolian Noor is another person that I also enjoy. And again, I'll stop there with rattling off what I listen to. I will randomly watch some joke stuff like Cat Williams. I don't know what channel it's on, but if I see Cat Williams or Kevin Hart, I'm probably going to click on that and watch that, and no clue what those channels are. So those are just some of the ones that I enjoy. And I see our guest is in the background. What's my favorite road trip song? Man, I don't know that I have a favorite song. I was just driving down the street and I was listening to some old school Tupac because I watched this interview earlier with Tupac on YouTube, and I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and pop on some Tupac. But I was listening to Me Against the World. That album actually came out. I want to say it came out my freshman year of college, and that album speaks to me because I was going through some stuff, and that album, that CD technically got me through some tough times. So if it's rap music, man, that's perfect driving music. Perfect driving music. So scrolling through, I well done, brother. Favorite workout song, rap music, brother. I firmly believe that you can have a better workout when there are curse words involved. I don't curse on YouTube because there are children out there. I don't want to be the person that exposes someone's child to foul language. But when you're working out, when you have some headphones on, man, I'm gonna tell you, you get an extra at least 20 pounds with a couple of curse words. I'm going to just throw it out there. It is fact. You go ahead and try it and prove me wrong. Do you blast the music? Oh, brother, I will tell you, I just had two of the windows down and it was cranking. It was cranking. And yes, I was also speeding because, again, hip hop music and driving in summertime, there is some magic made. The same thing with working out. 20 extra pounds, few extra reps. Prove me wrong. Scrolling through the rest of the comment, there's a couple of other comments here that I will try to revisit on the other side. I want to be respectful of the guest that is in the background. We are going to have a little bit of an impromptu conversation because there's been zero prep for this. Here, remind me of this question. You have two questions, Chasing Grills. Remind me of your two questions on the other side, and I promise you that I will address them on the other side, okay? The blue wrenches will hold me accountable to that, all right? So I want to invite my guest on because some things have been happening in the community that I think that this person is pretty excited about. They're pretty knowledgeable about. They've been waiting for this for a very long time, and we haven't had an opportunity to get together to talk about this since the magic was made. So I want to welcome to the show my good buddy, my collaborator, Doug Bratton. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Reggie.
I saw you laughing back there at several points. What specifically did I say that prompted you to chuckle?
Well, a few things, but the one I remember was the curse words adding extra motivation. Facts.
It's a fact, man. I'm gonna tell you. You dig deep when someone's dropping some curse words. I'm gonna tell you, when I'm brainstorming first thing in the morning for work, I cannot listen to rap music because it does things to my mind. Classical music, a little Beethoven, goes over really well for whiteboarding. I have music for certain occasions because it motivates me in the right way. Doug, Sandman Netflix series. It is out. What are your first impressions, sir?
I loved it. I'm on my second watch through. I feel. Oh,
Wait a minute. You've watched all the episodes one time and you're now starting again. Is that what I just heard?
I'm on episode 8 a second time through. I'm watching it with Pam the second time. I watched it on my own the first time. So
wait a minute. Did she know that you watched it already? Or was that a secret? Okay.
No.
Okay, I wasn't certain. All right, so you're on episode 8 the second time, watching it with the wife. Please continue. I'm caught up now.
So, I've been a big fan of the graphic novels, the comics, and I feel this is an excellent adaptation. And what I mean by that is, certain things work well on the page. That might not translate well to screen.
Yep. And
as much as I'm a fan of the show and I felt they were going to do it right with Neil Gaiman involved, there were certain things that needed to change for it to work for television, to make it more exciting for television. And I feel they've done a great job of being true to the original series while making really smart changes, adjustments, and updates to something that was written over 30 years ago.
I did not know that Neil Gaiman was actively involved. Like, I know that this is his creation. It's his baby, right? But I didn't know that he was actively involved. And do you think that that's part of the reason why it is so good, is because it is still his original vision, but he's there giving them, I'm guessing, support to make the necessary adjustments that need to be made because of the change of medium? Thoughts there?
I think that's right on. He's not the showrunner on this. I think he was for American Gods, so he's less involved, but I think he is very involved with the writer's room from what I've read, and I think that's important. I think it's such a well-respected property and revered property, and he has earned respect by the success of the adaptations of his work in the past, that I think keeping him close and allowing him to help make decisions has been important to the quality of it. For those who watched Game of Thrones, when the show was on book, it was very, very good. And I'm not a hater on the end. I thought, I liked it better than probably most did, but they did get away from working with George R.R. Martin in the last few seasons. And I think that created problems. And it seems to me like Sandman and Netflix and the producers understand the importance of having Neil Gaiman's support and creative voice involved in the series.
Huge shout out to Miss Paradise for the wonderful super chat. I absolutely appreciate that. Doug, you're not getting any of that, so no thumbs for you. But Doug, you made mention of a really interesting point there. You said on book. Can you explain what on book actually means? Because that's a term that folks may not be familiar with.
Sure. Basically that, well, for Game of Thrones, George R.R. Martin still has not completed the series. So the first, I believe, 4 or possibly 5 seasons of the show were adapted from books that he had fully written and were already published.
Yep.
So they did make changes, but I think they tried to stick as closely as possible to the
Source
script
material
of what was there. Yeah. And they had to make major changes because the books are so long. There's so many characters. But when I say that phrase for the Sandman, it's that there are certain story elements, character elements, and arcs and themes and subtexts that relate directly to the original works that are really important. And then there are other things that need to be changed to update it and to make it more interesting for television.
Yep. So one of the questions that I have for you, and again, we're doing this all on the fly, so please bear with me. Does someone need to read the comic in order to watch the show, or can the show stand on its own without anyone having any background on Sandman? Or is it the Sandman? Do I have to say the, like the Ohio State University? Like, is there a the there?
For the show, it's the Sandman.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose points here if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was just Sandman when it started. So that's a hard question for me to answer because I read it. But friends of mine, my wife Pam, have watched the show without having read it and seem to be really enjoying it as well. They might see things in a different light than I do. And there are certain changes and adjustments that I notice that they won't. But I think you can go in fresh. I think Neil Gaiman in an interview said, this doesn't need to be researched before you watch it. You can come in cold, watch the show, get it, and enjoy it.
I felt that the first episode was a little long. Like I was like, man, this is going on forever. But I felt like it was still interesting to me, and it was laying a foundation. I have not really read Sandman. Like I've tried to read it. I can't get into it. But the show I enjoy. And I saw someone's comment here. They were saying it was a little it wasn't as dark and moody as the comic itself, and that was one of the things that they kind of noted that they didn't necessarily like. Do you think that was one of the changes that was made, and was it a necessary change in order to get people on board, or are they just deciding to make it less moody for whatever reason? Thoughts on that?
I do think they did make some of those changes. And I think they worked well for the show. Without spoiling anything, there's a character, John D, who is probably a toned down version of who he was in the comic series. And I think that worked better. I think he came across as a more nuanced character. So I think some of those adjustments were for the sake of the audience, and some of it's just because you can develop characters in a different way on the screen and with good acting than you can on a page where it's a static image with a word balloon.
After having now watched it one time all the way through, and you're almost through a second time, what does your gut tell you about the future for Sandman as a Netflix series? Do you think that we are going to get a second season? Because they've been renewing shows after a few episodes. That I haven't seen any news about Netflix renewing Sandman. Do you think that it's going to happen? And if it doesn't happen, you won't lose any points. I'm just asking as a Sandman guy to weigh in.
I would be shocked if it is not renewed. And not just because of the critical acclaim. In its first weekend, it was the #1 watch show of the week. In its second week, it doubled those numbers. It was watched 3 times more than any other series on Netflix.
Because of you watching it over and over.
Well, yeah, I'm about half of those hours, sure, but we won't tell them that. No, I think it makes financial sense, even though Netflix has a ton invested. I think they invested that much because they know it is an expansive universe.
Mm.
And not only can the show continue,
Mm.
but there are real possibilities of spin-offs, specials. My understanding is they filmed 12 episodes for the first season,
Okay.
and held 2 back. And I think that was with the expectation that they could either use them better in season 2 or possibly use them as specials in between if it takes a while to film.
Breaking news here. I did not know any of that, so I'm not
One is
surprised.
animated.
Ooh, that'll be one that I may not watch, you know. But I mean, but isn't Neil Gaiman's stuff a little trippy? Like, I'm not surprised you said it was animated. Like, his stuff's a little trippy. Like,
Yeah.
there's a video that's going to be coming out soon, and it's based on a couple of things. But one of the comics that we highlight is an a issue full of cats. Like, it's full of cats. Like, there's a lot of trippy stuff that Neil Gaiman does, and I think that that's maybe why I struggle getting on board. But none of that's by accident. I mean, it's all purposeful storytelling on his part. Yes.
Yes, and that is the issue, because it was a very popular issue that has been done in animation form because it is in the dreaming and it is a world of cats. And I think to try and, do that straight with
Actual
cats
or
would,
CGI. Yeah.
yeah, wouldn't, using, and I've seen some stills from it because it was accidentally released to reviewers.
Yeah.
It's amazing artwork, and it's not typical of what you would normally think of when you see animation. And I think that's why, one, it costs so much money to make, because it's such a creative, unique world. But I think that creativity lends itself, that trippiness, as you said, and how the show is about kind of everything and everywhere and every when. Allows it to go in so many creative directions.
And I mean, at the same time, Netflix is experiencing lots of troubles. Like, they've canceled shows, they've pulled back budget, things that have been announced they are no longer doing. So fingers crossed that we do get a season 2 and subsequent seasons. But to that point, we are going to be dropping a video next week. We're going to drop a video next week. Do you want to give them a not the books, but a snippet of what that video will focus on? Not that you've seen it, but you did write the script. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. It's from the Buy These Books Now series, where we highlight comics that aren't yet in Key Collector app. And because of that, they're less on the radar. And there's quite a number of Sandman keys that are not yet in Key Collector. They're slowly, getting there and growing. But the one next week specifically features a few books that have multiple first appearances. And some of those first appearances, if I'm remembering correctly, are likely to turn up sooner than later. And in one instance may have already turned up very briefly in season 1. But they're multiple first appearances that aren't yet featured in Key Collector app.
And I recorded the video last night. I think it turned out incredibly well. It was pretty late, so hopefully there's no errors in there. But I think folks will enjoy the video, and the goal is to get that released out. I see some people making comments about the value of Sandman comics. Have the values actually gone up? Because I haven't paid attention at all. I've been so busy with other things. Are we seeing increases in the value of season 1 related keys from Sandman?
Yes and no. The quantities are increasing, and some of the prices now have actually gone up from before the release, which can be unusual. But I think that has to do with the fact that 2 things caused those books to drop significantly prior to the release. One is just the current economy and the impact it's had on almost all key books. And the second is when Netflix had some really bad earnings reports at the beginning of the Russia attack on Ukraine, and That led to a lot of fear. And there were rumors online that they weren't going to release the series, which made no sense.
Yep.
But
unless you're DC.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing. I'm glad Netflix has it and not Warner Brothers.
Yeah, because they would have killed it dead. Keep talking.
Yeah,
I'm listening
exactly. To you. But I think those two things, it's interesting. Those kind of tanked.
Yeah.
Those two factors combined really dropped collectors' interest more than you would normally see after kind of like casting and teaser trailer. There was a big, really big dip. So they're coming back up. But a couple of the big like issue number 1 is not yet back to its peak. It's higher now than it was 3 weeks ago by hundreds of dollars. But it's not back up to its previous high watermark. I think issue number 8, the first appearance of Death, which had dropped, I think is now back up to its high watermark and might have actually surpassed it this week. Okay. So it is interesting though, because usually it's the trailer that spikes it and then interest tails off. This seems to almost be the opposite, where it had those things drop it earlier, and it seems to be building some momentum still 2 weeks into release.
The other challenge, man, is I just don't think that there were a whole lot of people that were paying attention to Sandman. Like, for whatever reason, like, you look at the census counts. The census counts are not big for Sandman. Like, a lot of people in here are like, I've never read Sandman. I've never read it. I've never checked it out. Then you watch the show and you're like, oh, this show is actually pretty good. And so I think that there was a couple of different things that are happening. Again, to your point, Netflix lost like 2 million subscribers. 700,000 of them, from memory, were self-imposed. They cut Russia off, and then they were bleeding other people because of some things that they did with rates and all that other kind of stuff. It was about 2 million. I think it was their first loss of subscribers in like 10 years or something like that. So again, that does have a dramatic impact and sends maybe some fear down the line. So anyway, Doug, I want to thank you for jumping on, man. Kind of impromptu, kind of last minute, talking about your favorite comic. I had a feeling that you would be able to rise to the occasion, because so much of this stuff is top of mind for you. Before I let you go, any parting thoughts from you? And if either way, where can people get a hold of you on social media? And so the parting thoughts is anything you want to say, not just Sandman related.
Well, my parting thought will be a teaser that Friday, August 26th, the comic book crowd show that Joe from Anachronic Comics hosts with a number of other members of the community is going to be focused on Sandman, and I will be continuing the conversation in depth that Friday on the comic book crowd, which is again on Anachronic Comics on YouTube, and I believe that's 9 p.m. Eastern time, Friday the 26th. If someone could throw that in the chat,
take care of that. That'd be cool. Shout out, Joe.
And then best place to reach me is on Instagram at Doug.Bratton, Bratton. .9, and I try and post all of the isolation reviews that pop up on YouTube and Instagram.
You do a good job of it, brother. You beat me to a lot of those things. I'm like, where did he get that? And then I see it down the feed where somebody tagged me. You're on it, man. But Doug, super pumped, man. And to answer one of the questions earlier, we are working aggressively to get issue number 2 out before the end of the year. I am purposefully being vague about it, because we're actually going to be releasing 2 publications before the end of the year. One of them is Isolation issue number 2, and the other is the Guide to Smart Comic Collecting volume 2. So we're going to purposefully cryptic. And as we get closer to when those things will be released, we will provide additional details. Kickstarter is linked in the description. It's your opportunity to get all 10 covers of issue number 1. Doug, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you. Tell the family I said hello.
I will. Take care, Reggie.
All right. So let's go ahead. Joe is throwing up the comments here so that folks can tune in to see a little bit more of Doug and hear more about Sandman, Steve White, you, sir, are correct. It does rule. Shout out Jim Mint for giving us a nod earlier today in one of his videos. All right, so who was it? It was Chasing Grails. Chasing Grails, you had questions, sir. One of the questions that you had was, how do you stay motivated when it comes to exercise, working out, fitness, that kind of thing? I think that was the gist of the question. My best recommendation to you for that is to set a goal. The data would suggest that people are more likely to achieve a goal that is written out, that is detailed and written out and is in front of you, because you can remind yourself of what you have committed to. By simply writing out a goal and breaking that goal down into meaningful milestones that have to be accomplished, that should keep you on pace. I personally do better when I have a goal. Like some ambiguous goal of get in shape does not work for me. It may not work for you, right? But I want to lose X amount of weight by this date by doing these things, by eating 5 times a day, every 3 hours, by drinking a gallon of water, by not doing this, by exercising, by, right, like being specific. I personally do better with that. And if I take a big goal and I break it down into small things that I can do on a daily basis, I find that I'm able to hold myself accountable. Just ambiguous things, get in shape, lose weight, do better, move more, that stuff does not work for me. And again, may not work for you. So I would say set a goal, make it a meaningful goal, break it down into milestones, and set a deadline, set a date to it. That will potentially keep you accountable. My thing was I wanted to always step on stage and have zero regrets. I wanted to be at the bottom of the third stair, getting ready to go up to the stage. And I wanted to have no regrets about a meal that I didn't eat, water I didn't drink, a workout that I didn't have, cardio session that I didn't do. No regret when I step on stage, right? And that's why I do the things on a daily basis, so that I can have that no regret. And a lot of the content that is on the channel about getting comics that you want, getting grails. There's even some videos on there about setting goals for fitness. If you search for a Regie Collects or Reggie Simmons term, you should be able to find lots of videos. You had another question, and I cannot remember what it was. Let me see. I need that question one more time. There was another question here from Chasing Grails that I cannot remember what it is. If somebody could throw that up there, or if he can throw that up there, that would help me. Let me see. I'm scrolling through some of the comments. Doug Bratton, not too shabby. I have videos on just about every topic, right? Because I've put myself in the shoes of a lot of sellers, and of a lot of people to the hobby, and I've created content, or tried to create content that helps people. So here was the topic: selling raw comics. Thank you, Blue Wrench. So there are a lot of places to sell comics, right? And my thing typically is, well, what are you trying to sell? By determining what you're trying to sell, that helps you to narrow down where to sell, right? So I would say to you that there are several videos on the channel that speak to where you can actually sell comics and where you can specifically sell raw comics. Instagram is a great platform. I have a couple of videos on this, on buying and selling on Instagram. Yeah, you need to have an audience, right? Which means that you need to put up posts, you need to follow people, you need to put out content that people find appealing. Joining Instagram and say, will you follow me, is probably not the best way to build an audience. You build an audience by making friends, by being part of the community, by putting posts up that show your collection, and liking and commenting on other people's photos that they put up of their collection, right? You do that to integrate yourself into the community. And once you build yourself a following, a subscriber base, then you can start to sell comics through Instagram. It takes time. People don't know you, so they need to get to know you. Put up a photo of your face, put your real name up, put what you're interested in, put that stuff up, so you're not just a profile, but you're actually a person. People connect with people, not with profiles, right? So that's one piece of advice I would give you is Instagram is a great platform. If you don't want to build an audience or if you don't have the time, right, then there are other platforms that you can join. Many of them are sponsors of this channel, right? So Hip Comic is a great platform for buyers and sellers. Again, subscribe, supporter and sponsor of the channel. You cannot go wrong with a little bit of Hip Comic. There is myslabs.com. Myslabs.com has both raw comics and graded comics. They have 1% sales on there, so you can go that route. Facebook Marketplace is another way to go. There are also free apps that are available on your phone. Back in the day, it used to be Let Go and Offer Up were two great platforms for being able to sell things locally. I did a lot of business through those platforms, not so much as of late. My point here is that there are a lot of different ways to actually sell comics. Part of it comes down to how much time, energy, and effort do you want to invest in it. I would encourage you to watch one of my recent videos about can you still make money in the hobby that was released yesterday. Wonderful practical tips in there for making the hobby work for you, specifically as a seller. All right. Hopefully I closed that off. Reggie, I went vegan and intermittent fasting just so I don't spend the rest of my life visiting doctors. I respect it. Everyone has to have a process or, my whole thing with all this stuff, regardless of what you decide to do, find something that you can stick with long-term, right? Because one of the challenges is that, and I'm not saying this about you, one of the challenges is that people sometimes have a quick fix and it's easy to get results with a quick fix. And the challenge is that you cannot do that thing long term. You have to be able to develop a healthy relationship with food, a healthy relationship with exercise, a healthy weight in order to like maintain this stuff, right? So I would definitely say find something that works best. There you go. I think we covered off on that one. Thank you guys for reminding me of that question that came up. I'm scrolling through. Owen, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you. Chris Bigger says he is a machine. What is that? Very random, but would you ever make a video on bodybuilding diet plans? I struggle with meal budgeting and what varies bodybuilding food. So what I would tell you to do, brother, is I don't make videos about bodybuilding anymore because I'm not really a bodybuilder anymore. I'm not lifting and training the way that I need to feel comfortable putting that advice out there for people. What I will tell you is that if you search YouTube or if you search the internets for Regie Simmons bodybuilding, you will find a ton of interviews, articles that I've written, profiles of me that will provide you with a lot of insight into a lot of this stuff. Like the same way that I created content for comics, I have done that for bodybuilding as well. I've written articles for dozens of magazines around the world, some of which are available online. But if you search for Regie Simmons bodybuilding, you will find things. There are a ton of videos here on the channel about working out, about motivation, about diet, about food prep. There's also a couple of ebooks out there that I've written as well. Ton of great stuff out there. Hopefully you'll be able to find it. All right. Chuck says offer up is dried up. There you go. Not surprised, man. I hit it pretty hard. Scrolling through some of the comments here, motivation and consistency are the keys. I could not agree with that more. The one change that I would say to that is that motivation in my mind is a depreciating asset, right? Motivation waxes and wanes. I feel like working out. I don't feel like working out. I feel like eating this. I don't feel like. I can't depend upon a waxing and waning thing. That's why I have a goal. The goal keeps you true. The goal keeps you honest and focused, regardless of your motivation. I know what you mean, Rush. I know what you mean. So I'm not trying to counter that, but I want to add some texture to it. It is the goal that keeps you focused, and it is the consistency of executing that thing on a daily basis that helps you to achieve that goal, regardless of your motivation level. I don't feel like working out right now. I'm going to go work out and do shoulders tonight because I need to, right? That is what I'm going to do because I have a goal of not looking like a dad. All right, let me scroll through. So there was a couple of other comments here. Any chances we can get an audiobook version of any of those narrated by you? I can listen to that all day. I would tell you again, there's a couple of videos out there where I do the same thing that you can check out. What's funny is I started to do a audio version of isolation. I started to record it the other day. I was like, I should do this. I think it'll be interesting. But then I decided not to and moved on to something else. So you never know. You never know what could happen. All right. There were some other questions here. Let me get to these questions that were sent in earlier. How close is the new house to being ready? So it's not a new house. It's not a new house. I'm building a garage. And I spoke about this a couple of days ago on a live stream. The garage that I wanted to build, I think people heard me say garage, but they gave me a price for a house. They gave me a house price. And I've told them I don't want a house behind my house. I'm not paying that price. So we are not close at all. We're not close at all to building the garage. And I can look right there through this little slit and see where the garage is supposed to go at some point when inflation comes down, when interest rates come down, and when money gets a little freer, maybe, and when the supply chain gets fixed, because the supply chain is still a mess. Maybe we'll have a garage out there. We may instead be doing a pool. And I spoke about this before in terms of the cost. The pool guy is going to be here on Friday, actually, and we're going to talk with him and see what kind of magic would be made. There's a question here. Do you think Swoldier Publishing will ever have a monthly release schedule for comics? You know, the answer is I don't know, but I hope so. The challenge with isolation, for example, is that all of the pages are hand painted. Each page takes about 3 days or so to actually paint. That takes a lot of time, which means that it's really tough to do that on a monthly thing. I would have probably needed to be 3 or 4 issues ahead before I released one in order to be on that schedule of one comic per month. So for isolation, I think it's going to be a challenge, not a bad challenge. It's just, it's a statement of fact based upon the amount of work that goes into each and every issue. So that's why I'm also committing to giving you guys a comic by the end of the year with more details to come. Will there ever be a comic that comes out from isolation on a monthly basis? I hope so. But what I have to tell you is that between the channel, my family, my job, and the things that I do for Swoldier, my life is a little full, and it takes a lot of work. And so the thing is I don't know if I have the bandwidth or mental capacity in order to oversee a monthly release. It is also really expensive to put out comics. It is really expensive to put out comics, which is why, again, we have the Kickstarter and we are working to get some advertisers to support our efforts to move some of these things forward, because artists have to be paid, writers have to be paid, printers have to be paid, people that do the layout and the lettering and all the production work all have to be paid. All of that stuff costs money. And again, that money primarily comes from this computer and this microphone, but then also the sales. When people buy the comic, it goes towards that. So hopefully that answers that question. And again, these are first world problems, man. Right, Chris Bigger, you know this, brother. These are first world problems. I wish that I could just focus on putting out comic book content and publications. That would be amazing. But for the moment, that is not in the cards for me right now. So scrolling through, is Doug going to be on the cover of the next guide to comic collecting? What I would tell you is that Doug was on the cover of the very first guide to comic collecting. His name was on there right along with, actually, my name wasn't even on the cover. Was my name on the cover? I have to look at that. But Doug, the things that we do through Swoldier, whether it be the guide to smart comic collecting or isolation, would not happen without the input of Doug, and without Doug's wonderful writing and creativity behind them. It would be impossible for me to achieve, to the point that I was just making, impossible for me to do some of those things. So I am very appreciative of Doug. And to answer this question more directly, you're going to have to wait and see. Scrolling through, what else you guys are talking about? What is that? Gerald says, if you don't mind crayon, my son and I will do the colors for free. That's what's up. I appreciate that. What kind of none? Regie does not use a lawnmower. The relationship that the wife and I have is that I don't cut the grass. I buy her houses. She cuts the grass. This is the relationship that we've had since day one. But Regie does love a John Deere. I've always wanted a John Deere. and we got a John Deere. I just don't use it to cut grass. I do drive around on it. I hooked up the wagon to it just yesterday, put the kids in the back, and we drove out to pick up a branch that had fallen in the front. And then we drove back, we dumped it off near the burn pile, and then we drove it back into the garage. That was our outing. That was our outing with the John Deere. My wife said to me, she said, it seemed like a lot to go pick up a stick. And I was like, well, we got the kids out of the house for a little bit. My girl was driving the John Deere and all that kind of stuff. You gotta have fun with this stuff. It does. My wife pregnant used to cut the grass. She likes cutting the grass. I have allergies. I don't cut the grass. I do not enjoy it, but I do weed whack for her and I do blow. So I go out and I weed whack so that she can cut it easily, and then I blow everything away. That is how our stuff works. You're missing out on a free workout. Brother, she drives a John Deere. Only thing I'm missing out on is vitamin D beating down on this shiny head right there. That's the only thing I'm missing out on. I'm scrolling through some of the comments here. I think buy houses and have the wife cut the grass, tractor trips with kids. Man, my kids will know how to drive when it comes time to drive, because they cruise around the property either on the John Deere with us because they're not heavy enough to hold the seat down, or on their little tractor trailer kind of things. They will be great drivers. It is the green one. It is the green. That's a legitimate question. It is the green one. We have the classic John Deere. The only thing I'm missing is the hat, and I've got to get a John Deere hat because that is vital to me. Mikey Sutton. There you go, Mikey Sutton. Dreamwalker #2 is the first appearance of two important characters, Doug Bratton and Regie collects. He says it was just released in the Philippines. It was cool. I showed the preview of this a couple of weeks ago. It's Doug in his classic cap, and Regie with the milk dud and a red shirt. It was well done. Pretty nice surprise to see us in a comic. Shout out to Mikey Sutton. We definitely appreciate you, brother. Looking forward to getting our hands on issue #2 and supporting you the same way that you've supported us a lot of the things that we've been working on. We are very appreciative of you. Thank you for swinging by. Scrolling through, I am all caught up. All right, so we are going to wrap this thing up, man. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me a little bit. We are a little bit over time, but hopefully everybody enjoyed the show nevertheless. Shout out to Doug for coming on impromptu and getting on here talking a little bit about Sandman. Shout out to all 3 people that drop super chats and or stickers. I absolutely appreciate the support. The support, whether it comes in the form of video views, likes, comments, Patreon support, super chats, all of that stuff matters. It matters different, right? But it all matters, and I am very appreciative of each and every one of you. As always, if you guys need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
My body ate itself until it found its passion. They got fat while we starved, but it's power in fasting. Until I turn to ashes, I remain stoic through my rap heroics. I painted 10,000 poems, then I drank the potion of poetry and motion. I started choking, it was potent. My throat chakra downloaded. Knowledge hungry, I was embarrassed I could ask my parents for money when I had a full tummy. So I asked for wisdom, better than crypto, sweeter than honey. I don't take it for granted, I don't wear